IVM.
Are you having your period? When did you last have your period? Have the menstrual periods always been regular and painless, or do you get cramps? Sure, your gynecologist can ask you that, maybe a close friend, maybe your mom, but your boss? Hello, and welcome to the show, The Longest Constitution, and I'm your host, Priya Mirza, and we are talking about the different ways in which disabilities are constructed and perceived, which shapes our right to accessing the workplace and work. In today's episode, we are looking at bodies, all kinds of bodies, and how the state sees these bodies as able, as unable, as disabled. In the previous episode, we saw how the state did not, in fact, see the disabled, but it took solid work by the organized blind and pressured that the state see them. Following which, the People with Disabilities Act, PwD Act, was passed in 1995. And go listen to the episode titled, What is a Person? To truly understand that you don't exist till the law recognizes that you are, in fact, a person. So, before our first story, a little bit about the Constitution, just a little bit. In our fundamental rights in the Constitution, the word disability is used as a social impairment, where the caste system or social structures obstruct you from equal access to public spaces. And bodies and people have been recognized as being different historically, and one such category are women and children, identified by Article 15, Part 3. And it's perfectly legit for the state to make provisions for them. And our first story today is of Neera Mathur. The year is 1989 and she gets a job in LIC. She was hired, given a medical examination by a lady doctor. I mean, she's a doctor, just call her that. And was on probation. But the following year, before a year ended, when Neera took maternity leave, Neera was fired. Neera appealed to the High Court, and the company justified its actions by saying that her work was not satisfactory. But Neera then appealed to the Supreme Court, and that's when LIC revealed the terrible truth. Neera was fired because, not because she slacked on her work or she had fake degrees. Nope. LIC fired her because, hear this out, she had not correctly stated her last date of menstruation on the employee declaration form while joining work. Not ability, not competence, not merit, but lying about your menstrual cycle. Girl, you're going to lose your job. So is pregnancy or maternity a disability? So on to disabilities. Do pregnancy, maternity, having children obstruct you from working? And it was for this purpose that the Maternity Benefits Act was passed in 1961, which is applicable to all kinds of workplaces, from mines, plantations, and circuses. Yeah, you heard me right, circuses. And this was legislation passed to protect mothers and their right to wages and benefits following childbirth. And more on women's bodies, from menstruation to abortion to surrogacy, in the episodes to come, but for now. So, can the biological nature of a woman recognized by the state also exclude a woman from working or accessing a public space, especially when there is a law? There is a law which protects moms from being fired for being a mom. That's the question. And what about creatures with penises? How come they aren't being fired for becoming fathers? Anyway, now being fired for a disability is in fact prohibited by the PwD Act, which also suggests that employers do that. And that's important, that you can't be fired for a disability you acquired during work. Plus, no employee can be sacked or demoted if they become disabled during service, and no promotion can be denied either. So the PwD Act was important because it recognized for the first time 7 kinds of disabilities were recognized. Blindness, low vision, leprosy, hearing impairment, locomotor disability, mental retardation, and mental illness. And again, this was a biomedical definition of disability measured by a competent medical board of the disability being more than 40%. which in turn would guarantee social benefits from that. Plus, it provides for 3% of vacancies in government employment. ठीक है, that's great. But how? How does one get to work? गाड़ी से, Uber से, metro से, bus से, rail से, road से, कैसे? How? So work from home is, of course, pandemic induced, but what about regular non-corona times, guys? There are interviews, workshops, training programs. How does one get there? So travel. And we'll get to trains in a bit, but first, planes. Today's second story is to do with the implementation of the PwD Act. Now, Javed Abidi, the leader and tireless campaigner for the disabled who led the disabled rights group, said that a law is meaningless unless that access is real. So in 1997, he filed a writ against Indian Airlines to provide discounts for wheelchair users and to ensure accessible airports. But what did the government have to say? Represented by Soli Surabji, the government argued that it would be too expensive to provide for concessions. Hello, too expensive? And luckily, the Supreme Court was not impressed with that argument. In 1998, the court ruled a travel concession and accessibility measures to be implemented at airports. Yay! And the verdict in this trial was the first victory for disabled persons in India under the Act. And with that, we get back to Neera Mathur. In Neera Mathur versus LIC 1991, the court ruled that the LIC was responsible for, listen to this old-fashioned word, mischief, though unintended, by asking lady candidates, again old-fashioned talk for women, which are indeed embarrassing if not humiliating. Embarrassing and humiliating. It could be neither actually. Women menstruate, period. But to ask questions about that is a violation of my privacy. The court directed LIC to delete the questions in their employee declaration form regarding menstruation, pregnancy, abortion, and childbirth, and termed echoing such information a denial of an employee's modesty and self-respect. So that was Neera Mathur, redefining what mums can do, work for sure, and file cases definitely. More recently, in 2013, a designer, Indrani Chakravarti, was fired over the phone when she declared she was pregnant, but she successfully sued the company and was granted 7.5 lakhs for compensation. Wow. But. The point also to remember is that legal action, moving court, takes time, effort, and money. And the vast majority of women aren't equipped to take on their more powerful employers when they are fired, especially when there's a little baby to take care of. Sad, but true. Okay. And as we wrap up today's story, sure, while the 1998 case was a victory, everyday travel is hard. Trains and buses are truly inaccessible. In 2013, Javed Abidi wrote, "We all know the story of Mahatma Gandhi having been thrown off a first-class carriage in South Africa because of the color of his skin. I say Gandhi ji was really lucky. After all, he did manage to get into the coach. I, as a wheelchair user, can't even get inside. Traveling, so fundamental to work, becomes harder if you're disabled. So though the Indian Railways does have a Divyang coach, how about getting to that railway coach? Toilets, ramps matter." In 2015, the Accessible India campaign was launched, but it really hasn't changed much. And it tells us that there is no body which is fixed and perfect, and these disabilities are sharpened when they are measured against the able-bodied. Imagining disabilities in numbers and percentages doesn't really see the social barriers to work which truly exist. If the able are able, the disabled are able as well. All right then. Today we end with a question. If disability can be measured, can motherhood? Are you less or more of a mother if your child was stillborn or adopted? More on motherhood and women's bodies in the coming up episodes. In the next episode, we will look at the amendment to the Maternity Benefits Act and how the rights of the disabled have expanded, and some great judgments and some not so great ones. Did you like this show? Share it with your friends. Until next time, this is me, Priya Mirza, signing out.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Advertising is Dead, Varun talks to Aman Gupta, CMO and co-founder of Boat. They discuss how Aman built a profitable brand via a thorough understanding of his consumers and his experiences as one of the sharks on Shark Tank India. On Paisa Vaisa, Shinjini Kumar, co-founder of the My Salt app, debunks various myths around women and finance with Anupam. On the longest constitution, Priya raises important questions in this Republic Day special episode. She compares the current state of our country to the vision of the constitution that was formulated 73 years ago. The Pulyabazi hosts contemplate how to celebrate Republic Day in their new series, Ek Sawal Kahin Jawab. And on the Life Manifesto, Zarina teaches us how to say no and create healthy boundaries. Also, just one quick announcement for everybody. We would like you to check out the new version of our Android app. It's available on the Play Store. It's a really interesting take on how to listen to podcasts. Do give it a look and let us know what you think. We're open to feedback on all of our social media channels. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Also, do remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Word of mouth really does help. And don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms you're listening to us on. And you can also check us out on YouTube. And we have a number of channels there at ivmpodcast.com/YouTube where you can take a look at them. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Bank of Baroda and CoinSwitch Kuber. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Love fighting?
We've got you covered.
Check out our show, The Fighting Goat, where we, the voices of the internet, Arjun Chipalkatti and Somesh Kamra, bring to you crazy weekly action on your favorite combat show, The Fighting Goat.
Be it commentary, breakdown, predictions, analysis of styles and techniques.
And of course, your round of favorite fighters.
You can listen to us every Thursday on the IVM Podcast app, website, and all major podcast streaming platforms.